A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is incredibly interesting to me because it's basically like the anti-House of the Dragon. You've taken everything from House of the Dragon, including production quality, and you've removed all the epicness.
Yes.
But that's not a bad thing.
Not at all. Particularly in where Game of Thrones is at. I think having a direct, this is a story that is being adapted. It's not a pretend history book. Here it is. I think it's a good idea.
The show seems to be treating itself the way that I assume George was treating it when he wrote it, which was like a way to relax from all the ridiculousness and high-octane Game of Thrones.
It was originally published in a novella collection of short stories. He had written the first book, was working on the second, and they wanted it to be a original story inside the world, so it couldn't be like just an unreleased chapter. So he went and he just came up with the idea of Sir Dunk and Egg, his squire, and since it's like a tribute to those like classic sword and sorcery, like Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse, Elric, Conan, like those short stories that you would find in those classic fantasy magazines. And he has managed 3 so far. He either says it'll go up to 12 or there's 12 more.
I think he told the showrunner Ira Parker about 12 other stories.
The 3 that we've got are wonderful. I'm already excited, mainly for the 3rd story. That's my favourite, so I'll probably have to wait. The way they're going, I think they're filming right now. Season 2's next year.
Stop raping, sir.
We get introduced immediately to the idea that this is not Game of Thrones, this is not House of the Dragon, this is the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because it is a man burying his adoptive father in a field, and then as the music swells, as the Game of Thrones theme comes out, we cut to just him shitting everywhere.
Oh, it's great, particularly because this isn't a grandiose story. It's set in a field, which is why they can turn this around. There isn't going to be any great visual effects, except for, I mean, they've even managed to avoid the castle. I thought the castle would get some fancy because it's Game of Thrones.
It's closer.
Even the tiniest of lords have dramatic castles in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So, but in this, it's obviously perfectly fine because it's not important what the castle looks like.
Yeah. I think it's a great proof that you don't need such an epic thing going on, because it's not like it doesn't have production value. It's still got incredible production value. It's just on a much smaller scale, and they're using it smarter. So that's good if it gets us a turnaround quicker. This kind of feels like what the BBC should be doing now. Like, this feels like the natural evolution of like Merlin from way back when. You've got all this stuff. You've got all these cool locations. You've now got nicer camera, better lights. You can shoot simpler and still get it across. Because this first episode, very little progression, but it's all character.
The only issue is, and obviously you can't get around it, in the book he's like 18 in the first story, 6'9" and then by the next story he's fully grown to just short of 7 foot. But in this world, the mountain was 6'9", so Duncan the Tall 6'6". You surround him by people who look shorter. You put him
hire a bunch of little actors.
Yeah, which is what they do in this.
Make all the doorways a little bit shorter.
And also in actual medieval England, if someone was 6'6" walking around, it would be very noticeable.
They're freakish.
And also the chances of finding a 20-year-old who's 7 foot and a good actor are ironically short.
Well, they went to a rugby player for this one, and he fits the bill, not just height-wise, but you call him Dunk. He looks a bit dopey.
And they do a good job because the book is obviously written from Dunk's perspective. So in this, you hear a lot of his POV because he's talking to the horses, which only adds to that vibe that this is not a simpleton, but a simple person.
Yes, definitely naive.
And the setting is, I don't want to get too much into it's a time of peace.
Yes.
We're roughly, if you will, about middle way, like about 80 or 90 years before Game of Thrones. So Lionel is great-grandfather to Robert Stannis. And I'd say about 80 or 90 years after the Dance of the Dragons, whatever happened there.
Which is an interesting thing to do, because with that timeline, you've got House of the Dragon that isn't over yet. That's still coming out. So I do wonder how much they're going to either muddle each other up or add to the story. I hope we don't get homework from it. I hope it doesn't end up being, oh, you have to watch this before you watch this. Like, that'll be annoying.
Yeah, well, the joke is that good old Joffrey has already spoilt all this because he spoilt House of the Dragon, and he's arguably spoilt where Dunk ends up as well.
Oh, I don't know yet.
Yeah, he references Duncan to Jaime at one point, so he continues on being King Joffrey the spoiler.
Which is his worst crime.
Yeah, it's worst crime first. Well, I guess the plot would be is that Sir Dunk has buried the knight who he's been looked after. We get a mention of him you hit me, and which is like, it goes from that sullen start, then, hey, we have got some humour because you're cutting Edgar Wright-esque, if you will,
Yeah.
to him being hit over the ears repeatedly.
Yeah, and not in the Marvel way where you say, I'm never going to do that, and then they cut to him doing it.
Yeah.
It's more cracking jokes because he says, he always wanted me to be a knight. We cut to him not caring at all about whether he wants to be a knight or not.
The show is doing a good job because it can't do exactly what the text does, and that is that Dunk, when he lies, his ears turn red. He knows about himself. And when he tells the guy, when he wants to sign up for a knight, he tells him the story of how he became a knight and ponders if his ears are turning red.
Right.
And in this, when he goes, oh, I was knighted and the only witness was a robin, but we clearly saw he was shitting himself when the robin was there. So the general implication is, which I think most people would have picked up by now, is that Dunk isn't actually officially a knight, but will go on to, well, we can assume, to be the most true of knights, which is very George R. R. Martin, the great irony being that he isn't a knight, even though he shows the values of a knight.
Yes, because a hedge knight is the truest knight.
Yes.
And a hedge knight being someone who sleeps in hedges.
Yeah, like he's not, he's almost like a mercenary, basically. He's one step above a sellsword because he's knighted.
Yep.
Which is what we see at the start. He's pondering on what he could do next. And then he thinks of the tourney at Ashford Meadow.
We spend a lot of time just sitting on him, either talking to himself or getting to know him, which I do wonder if this show is going to scare off people. I want more of this. I enjoyed what I saw, but I do worry that it wasn't fast-paced enough. It didn't end with a big hook.
It just kind of ended. But you felt interested in Dunk just without...
Oh, almost immediately. Just the fact that, yeah, we sat with him. I think a lot of it is the way he's portrayed, just because he seems so nice, and
Innocent.
it is massively contrasted with
And
the rest of the
earnest.
world. Yeah, like he's not there to hurt anyone. He literally wants to become a knight because what else is there for him? He's kind of like, it's not delusions of grandeur or anything like they talk about a lot of knights later in the episode that come in like they just want power, they want glory. But Dunk's like, he's kind of seen it his whole life. He just wants a little bit more.
Yeah, and he's, it's my time. I thought the shitting, I have to imagine they were debating on that being there or not, because I understand it's going, hey, this is the world we're in.
Yep.
We're shitting behind the tree. But I also think it's not weird, but it's quite the gag to open on, if you will.
Yes, considering there's nothing else to
Like it.
hook people or like grab them. There is a quote from the showrunner that says, I hope people forgive us in regards to the shitting. So they definitely were wondering, like, is this a good idea? I think it is because it sets the tone.
Yeah, it's letting you know that this isn't going to be all court and politics.
Yeah, and they don't overdo it because the only other real, like, not even gag, but
The spitting in the cup.
the spitting in the cup,
Which links into that.
which is also just like, it's dirty Game of Thrones. Like, that's what people did.
Exactly.
It'd be the same as like throwing shit out the window back in like Victorian England kind of deal. Like, it's happened, it's of the times.
Dunk goes to inn where he meets who he assumes is just the stable boy and is either the son or the boy of the innkeep. Goes in there and sees a silver-haired lord who says, I dreamt of you. Wonder who that guy could be.
I didn't actually notice he was silver-haired. I noticed the coin. They make it pretty obvious. They zoom all the way in. It's a Targaryen symbol next to a big subscribe button. How can you miss that big subscribe button? It's dark. I didn't really clock him as like silver-haired.
Yeah.
But fair play. That's the thing. It's like everything's surrounded in mystery. So they're not really like going for the grabs. They're more just like, hey, here's a little something.
Yeah.
But then when he does meet the young boy who... He's in all the trailers. I think even people realize that he's important. And by the end of the
Yes.
episode, he's rocked up again.
Rather posh accent for a stable boy, which I'm sure most people... It makes sense that Dunk wouldn't pick up on that.
Yeah, but he's very eloquent.
Yeah.
And what I like is their comparison that I assume is intentional.
Yes.
But Dunk uses a lot of smart words and phrases, but he uses them kind of like cautiously.
Yeah.
And he's like not stumbling over them, but it feels like he's heard somewhere else and he's just repeating because it's maybe what his lord said to him, but he doesn't quite get it.
Close your insolent mouth.
When he met the Fossaways, the cousins, he goes, that's a long sword. He goes, yes, it's mine by right. And the Fossaway goes, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he's just repeating things he's heard or like what he thinks a knight should say. And it's like, Knights are a lot more casual than you think, buddy.
Exactly. And I think he still has that rose-tinted idea of chivalry and doing the right thing. And
which will definitely bite him in the ass if you watch this season on.
Do not watch coming up this season. It was like the ultimate, like...
I wish I didn't. It's like here's the best 30 seconds from each episode.
I was very surprised that they'd given away that much, but it's also because it's a vibe kind of show.
Yeah.
It's not heavy in plot, which I think will be interesting given that the 2 Game of Thrones shows we've had are very heavy in intrigue and plot and politics, where this is not at all.
Yep. Again, it's like the anti-House of the Dragon, because you get a little plotting, little politics when Daniel Ings, who's he play again? The Baratheon. Lionel Baratheon?
Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm.
Because he's comedic?
Oh, because he laughs when he fights. He's all about just... They've given him more, which makes sense because he's a notable, like, herald character. The scene between... All that stuff is invention, but it's completely true.
Well, then that's exactly what I want them to be doing. Yeah.
They're adding more. I mean, already they're giving Dunkard seemingly more of a flashback than he ever had.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, because I'm not worried, but, like, you know how I feel about flashbacks. So when he does meet Lionel Baratheon, some of the politics that Game of Thrones is known for, he's like, why are you here? You're here to kill me, obviously. Like, I'll kill you first. What are you going to bring me?
If you come to a lord's tent, you have to bring me a gift. And if you don't, it must mean because you mean me harm.
So then it's like, oh, Game of Thrones intrigue. But then he's like, I just came here to actually eat food. And he's like,
he loves it.
Damn. Me too, buddy.
Well, his main plot goal of the episode is that he wants to get vouched for by a lord so he can get in the tourney. He's got no money, but he's banking on the fact that he's big and got a good horse that he'll be able to at least win one.
And that's all he needs to start. Then he looks like a knight.
Yeah, then he can look the part. So he goes up to the game master, and the game master kind of plays him for a bit, and then just says, look, yeah, all good. I'm in the whole bit where he goes, this isn't the Riverlands, this is the Reach. We aren't going to do stuff like that.
We're not going to fuck you with a spear, basically.
Yeah, but we will need you to have someone to come vouch. Yeah. So then he goes to find Lord Dondarrion.
A ginger guy.
Who is the ancestor of Beric Dondarrion from the Brotherhood Without Banners, who keeps getting brought back to life by the Red Priest.
Man.
And his goal is, I need you, because Sir Arnold Penetry served your father in a war, you can vouch for him.
And I assume you loved that because you love the realities of war, and like, there was 800 people. He's not remembering this one guy.
Also, like, Sir Arnold Penetry isn't the most notable knight in the world.
Yeah. Again, the thing of like, because it was his adoptive father and like probably the first knight that saved his life and helped him out, he's glorified him, even though they show him multiple times through the episode in flashbacks. When he does have the spear in him, he's a fat guy. He's a fat old guy. When they're burying him, he's a fat old guy. Like,
yeah, he's fed Dunk the romantic tales like a Hedge knight is a true knight because he doesn't want his squire to think of him as a naff old thing, you know. So that's quite good. But that's kind of Dunk's main goal, is to simply try and get in the tourney and then also just trying to be about the people. And what I really like is we see the heraldry. I know George Martin loves seeing his heraldry. So we see the Lord Ashford's, like, you know, his men have got the arrow pointing down. Lord Ashford is doing a big old tourney. I think they're fighting, if I remember, for his daughter. But basically, he's went out of his way to get all the lords in the area.
Best ones.
Yeah, like he really wants it to be a show-off thing. So all the big lords are coming, which includes, obviously, Sir Lionel Baratheon, who is one of the 7 most powerful lords in the whole continent.
So you're telling me the daughter's hot?
Well, she must have a good dowry as well, you know, that whole thing. I really like the design, like they actually went ahead and given people facial hair, which you don't really see too often.
Lionel looks fantastic. He's like half a pirate.
He's a great actor too.
Exactly. The last thing I remember him from is The Gentleman, where he plays a Nepo baby that is bad at being a real human. So I kind of drafted some of that onto this character, I think, just the way he acts as well.
Yes. Some events have been switched around. Like, it's still fundamentally the same, but they've just moved some things. I'm pretty sure the conversations with the whores did not exist. He just goes immediately and finds Lord Dondarrion. He's told, fuck off, I don't remember you. But in this, they've just moved, like, his stuff with the armour has been changed and stuff like that. I like that, his talk with Sir Lionel and his time with Sir Lionel with the whole, like, stamping on his foot when they're dancing, which was very good. That's why he decides to become Sir Duncan the Tall and stands tall for the first time. I like that that's linked in a bit. It's a nice addition.
Yeah, talking about how he slouches because he doesn't want to be seen, despite obviously he's always going to be seen.
Used to getting hit by his, a clout in the ear, which is true to the book. He often says to Egg, you'll get a clout in the ear if you don't do this. So glad they continued that. It's funny, isn't it? Because there isn't too much to talk about.
Well, it's an incredibly simple show, and we've seen so many stories like it, but it's just a really simple story told really well so far because, like, it's Shrek, it's Mandalorian and Grogu.
It was written before A Knight's Tale, but I would say to you, if you like A Knight's Tale, it's of that ilk.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd argue that, obviously, it's a TV series. This could have been a film. This could have been 2.5 hours. I mean, I'm fine with it being a show, obviously, but...
I think it probably serves streaming better though, because like, especially if you're going to end up doing 12 of them, like it gives you something to do. And it also lets you reuse sets because you're already using them for the big epic thing. So
yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this is just smart production.
And like the only recurring cast are basically Dunk and Egg.
They're traveling, I assume.
Well, the plan is to have stories in all the main kingdoms.
A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms,
yes,
I guess.
That's the whole plan, and you know.
With the simple story told incredibly well, it's basically like The Last of Us, Mandalorian and Grogu. It's always a badass and a child, whereas this is kind of just like a dopey himbo and a small boy, but the boy is smarter.
Yeah, he calls himself Dunk the Lunk, thick as a castle wall, is what people would call him, is what his old knight would call him. But yeah, it's the thing where Egg is the white, well, seemingly the clever one, the wise one. And I would say Dexter is the lad's name.
Yep, that's right.
Played a young President Snow in the recent Hunger Games.
Oh, okay. So he's done stuff.
Yeah.
Because so often with these young actors, this ends up being their first time thing.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that he is probably actually a good actor, because I liked everything he was doing.
I thought he did really well, the whole like... Okay, small spoilers. Okay, can we go into this? His name's Egg, for fuck's sake.
Yes. I reckon most people know, but especially if you're watching reviews on it, you probably know. But
it's hard to... spoilers for who Egg is. He is Prince Aegon.
Yeah.
George prefers Aegon to Aegon, which is why Egg. I think he does anyway. And this Prince Aegon is the fourth son of the fourth son of the king. So he's as low as you can be.
But he could be. It's the whole like,
yeah, he could be.
He's still a threat to certain people.
Yeah, the setting right now, which wasn't brought up in the book at the time because he hadn't really figured it out, but this is about 15 years after the Blackfire Rebellions, which were the other Targaryen civil war, which involved the Blood Raven, who we saw at the end of season 2.
So there's a lot of Targaryens dropping off.
And all that. And I would love a Blackfire Rebellion. So I think it's a really interesting period, but we don't have the second part of Blood and Fire to really flesh that out just yet.
Yep.
If we ever will. I don't think that is really that important at all. I think all you need to know is the Targaryens no longer have dragons.
Yep.
And as you see, that some of the Targaryens seem to have brown hair. I wonder what that's about. The one who's going to be king in the book is brown-skinned, black hair. But in this one, he's white with brown hair. But yeah, like these are the questions, is where you're going, is that the Targaryens are in a different state where they are right now, where I think 50, 100 years ago, they wouldn't have been coming to a local tourney. But now the logic is, I think what George has said, is that they have to have more of a presence because they can't just scare people with their dragons now. So they have to be more charming, more political, and turning up to tourneys. Because so it makes sense as to why they're there. And we get the most, I would argue, the most Targaryen-looking guy we're going to be getting soon. Like they've even dyed his eyebrows blonde, which I appreciate. No purple eyes, but it is what it is.
So we probably will get to see more of this show, as in like season 2, like you said, it's already filming, because apparently George and Ira Parker are besties now.
It's like there's a UFC thing where Dana White says we were never friends, and we were never friends. George has been... Ryan and I were never friends. And then poor Ryan's on Fred's going, no, I'm trying to be loyal. Yeah, George came out and basically just went in on it. When I've got a big ego, Ira Parker's done it. I'm really happy with the show. Ira's like, yes, I listen to George all the time. I really want his... I think Ira has wrote a few episodes on House of the Dragon.
Yes.
So he's familiar with it. I guess George liked him, or Dave liked him.
Yeah, promoted within the ranks at least.
And I think... for a show to be a showrunner of, to have a completed book that is quite simple, I think it's a good, like, baby's first steps as a showrunner.
Well, he's a pretty young bloke. He's 40, I think Ira Parker is. He's got the haircut of a 30-year-old.
Yeah, God, I would have put him at my age. Yeah, fair enough.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I checked, because I'm like, how young is this fella? But apparently 40.
George is very happy. He's very happy with the casting, very happy with everything, the heraldry, and basically saying that House of the Dragon... they don't really hear from him anymore. They leave him on red when he leaves emails. And when they brought him in for a meeting, he said that this no longer resembles his story.
I was about to say, he said it was so far off his story that it's not his anymore, something like that.
Which worries me, considering that I really liked the way that story went. What got me worried with Ira Parker was I thought it was a promotional thing.
Right.
Like, no, I'm listening to George, like, to get idiots like me on side.
Yeah.
I think it's a big move that they want George in on the podcasts, doing interviews for it, so it seems like a George-approved show.
Yeah.
But, it seems that he is so impressed, he's motivated to write more Duncan Eggs. I think these could be outline stories. You could do the story well. I think, obviously, they've had the benefit of lifting George's wonderful dialogue, but the stuff they've invented is also very good. And so I've got very high hopes for where this series could go. And I think they want it to be their good old reliable that's easy for people to enjoy. Like, when I've told people about it, they go, oh, it's another Mandalorian type show. But it's not, because it's not like it's Duncan Egg every episode on a new adventure. It's one whole story, which is going to be told across many seasons.
Yeah, which I do wonder if it'll keep people or whether people will end up just binging it.
I would argue that while I like the logic of weekly, there isn't going to be much theory crafting with this one.
Yes.
So I couldn't help but think that this might have been served as a good Friday night drop weekend watch. But then that's just me as a fan.
Yeah.
But when it was over, obviously I'm looking forward to next week because I love this story. But I can understand someone who isn't familiar with it maybe will wait for it to be fully finished so they can binge it, or maybe don't feel. I don't know if people will. What is keeping people coming back other than that was a good show. I'm looking forward to the next part, I guess.
They've done a lot of things strategically for that fact. Like, nothing else is coming out at the moment on Sunday night for everyone else, Monday for us.
Yeah.
It's only 6 episodes, 30 minutes. You don't really go in expecting anything. It's not like The Boys and Gen V, where it felt like there was this big mystery that was meant to be solved and you were never getting any resolution. So you weren't having water cooler moments for that. Whereas this, it doesn't feel like they're actually chasing that.
I mean, Dunk in one episode has had more screen time than main characters of House of the Dragon across the whole season.
It's very convenient when you keep things simple. Like Fallout Season 2, you've got so many characters that, you do lose a lot this time, but Dunk is in almost every single minute of this 30 minutes.
I don't think we're away from him.
Because he is POV, actually.
He's POV, and which I think they will keep true to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there would be some temptation to cut away, but I think they'll keep true to it.
Spoilers if you haven't watched the this season on. I am a little worried about the flashbacks. I don't want them to overuse it. There are a fair few in that flash forward.
I think they want to give Dunk a bit more meat than just being a nice knight who wants to do the right thing.
I feel like the portrayal gets a lot of that across though, so I'll save my judgment for those flashbacks. It also depends how long they go on. If it's literally like they did in this episode where he mentioned something, cut back for a second, cut forward, that's fine. But if we end up spending half an episode in the past...
I'm hoping it's just going to be 2-3 minutes of an opening and he wakes up and goes about his day again.
I would be okay with that. You set up like the premise of the story, or like, he's going to learn this lesson again, yada yada.
And because I don't think I need the Dunk squiring years, like Arrow or something, like flashing back. But
they fade up to a light, fade back down.
Yeah, but I wish I sounded more excited because I have really enjoyed it. And as ever, I love seeing this world, love seeing the heraldry. I wish the colour grade, I understand they want consistency amongst the episode series, but I wouldn't mind if the colour grade was a little bit brighter.
More pop. I did think that during the intro. Because
this is meant to be a peaceful...
But it was such a cloudy day, and I'm like, I get it, but I would have chucked an extra light in, give him a little rim. It would have. It's not a pretty show.
No, it's grounded because they want the groundedness of boots on the ground because you're not with the lords in the castle. I understand the cross,
but we want it because it is a simpler show. You want a little bit more.
I wanted to touch that the production design, like the way that when you go to different tents, I know that's the Baratheon tent because it's a shitload of stag heads. Yeah, the way they've characterized Lionel Baratheon, I like that they went. I thought he would be bigger because all the Baratheons seem to be 6'6" in the books,
bulky boys.
But you can't have a 6'6" guy and a 7-foot guy.
I guess it could also go with the whole yes, he is big, but Dunk has heard so many stories about how great the Baratheons are. So in his mind,
that would be it.
Every story they get bigger. Yeah.
But I think overall this is a really nice return, and also with House of the Dragon coming in middle of the year now, I think if this can be there, I think what they hope is it takes so long for these shows to be made. If old Duncan Egg can come out every year with 6 episodes of a simple Adventures of a Night, then it can keep people invested in the world at least. And
it lets them advertise Westeros, the video game or mobile game, or whatever the fuck that thing is.
That was ridiculous.
Hate that. Stop that. Well, Euphoria ad, podcast ad, game ad, and then at the end of the show, game ad again.
I think by the end of this whole series, we should hopefully all be loving Duncan Egg and wanting another adventure with them.
Keen.